My name is Sarah Heimann. I'm a potter from Lebanon, New Hampshire. I am an instructor at Dartmouth College in Hanover. I live and work in a big red barn. I have a cat who sits on my table in my studio. I spend most of my time carving, listening to books in my ear, talking to friends as I carve. I am surrounded by gardens and woods. I go on lots of walks and runs. I live in a fairly rural area. I pull the forms that I work on from very simple daily use pots. You'll see many cups that are meant to be used when you're being special with yourself. Some pieces are cups with feet. I have pieces that are for displaying flowers, but I want them to be something that is going to live in your house and live as a drawing, live as a sculpture. Something that when you have it, you turn it and you see something else. So the bottoms of the pieces are considered. I make teapots. I like the idea of people sharing a beverage, or you are cherishing yourself. You have to hold the handle. You have to make sure that your hand is on that knob. You have to put your hand inside that knob. You'll find umbrellas with these most recent pots as knobs, so you have to put your thumb underneath that umbrella to carefully lift it out. And that delights me. There's a set of stacked jars. There's a number of them. So there's a couple different iterations of this where I'm playing with different volumes. One sort of goes in and out, and it's a really difficult challenge for me intellectually to figure out how to make my drawing work. So you'll see I have these opened buildings, you'll see buildings or these rectilinear forms on the outside of my pieces, surrounded with, there are vines and there are abstracted geraniums. I have these very leggy geraniums that look, people are like, no, that is a ginkgo, okay? Because it is flat and it reads sort of like a ginkgo, or another person will tell me it's a crinoid, which I still don't exactly know, but I think it's some sort of fossil. And so people see a lot of different things. What I see as I'm drawing a growth pattern. So I'm drawing a sense of movement and a sense of vegetation, and then I'm putting into it something which for me references like the hand of human. So that's why originally, years ago, I had chairs on my pieces, and those were like abstracted body, where a body sits. Here, like umbrella, it's like, here's water coming or sun, and you have to hold this thing to protect you, or it becomes like a swagger stick. That's a really interesting thought to me. You're gonna see these round circles, which I think of as moons. I'm pulling from, at the Minneapolis Institute of Art, there was an amazing screen. It had cranes, I think. But what I remember is this golden moon, and I was entranced by it. And I use that idea of it, in my pieces, and there are multiples because I don't want it to be literal. So what happens when I put, let's say there's 3 moons around a piece, and you'll see some that are brighter, and you'll see some that I think of as shadow moons. There's a large vase in the front, which has a black moon. And so I imagine, well, what is that shadow? When there's like an eclipse and you're not supposed to look, but there's this black in front, you have the sense of this thing there. That's really interesting to me. I have some buildings that come out a little bit. You'll see them, they're carved back, so they're behind the original plane of the piece. And I think of those as shadow buildings versus ones that come forward. My pieces are layered. Carving just fascinates me because of that. I tell stories in the layers. So what goes behind something else? How do I make something go on top of it? There's some wall pieces because a friend of mine, there's a wall piece. A friend of mine said, well, Sarah, what happens if you take away utility? What do you do? And that's the most interesting question to me. Like, what if? What happens if I do this? What happens if I like make it really thick? Like, can I make that carving change? Can I really attack that? And that's an ongoing question. I don't have like the answer. It's just it's a beginning step. You'll also find underneath, which, you know, sometimes my pieces are shown on mirrors or on glass because you can look up and see underneath. There are animals, little sketches of animals underneath, just like otters, or there might be a little fox or a little cat that you might be like, that's a fox. I'm honestly, you can tell it's a creature. And they go back, I wax and wane with my specificity. They're animals that surround where I live. I see out the door, my studio door, I have seen bobcats, and then here we are in West Virginia, you see this stuff too. You know, I saw a fisher cat, which terrified me because they are a top-line predator. They're very big, you know, weasel on steroids. And, you know, I see all sorts of things. My workshop was such a delight, and I hope that some people discovered that they're really good at something they had no idea that they could do. Like, I think it's such a different way of thinking to take a basic sketch, which might be very clumsy, and then sort of realize it. I hope that they began to get an understanding of how to layer and how this awkward little drawing they started with becomes something that they didn't know they could do. Some of them are going to decide that they're like, oh yeah, I did one, that was fine. No more, thanks, that was cool. I don't need to do that again. But they are going to have an understanding from forever on of, like, they're going to look at furniture and they're going to see that carving and they're going to understand it. Or they're going to see architectural detail and they're going to have a little bit of it. Or like look up and see plaster detailing in a house. They're going to understand that in a very different way than they ever could have without spending time just beginning to figure out how to use these tools and how to wrap their brain around that. I think of myself as I've begun to think that some people work reductively and some people work additively. Like, I took a class with Sid Carbonate and I had to build a sculpture, and I was only comfortable when I started carving it. Then I was like my whole body relaxed because I was like, oh thank God, I'm doing something I can do. Like, and that happened to me almost right away. When I started carving, I was like, oh, I get that. And I had a couple people in the workshop who were like, oh my God, I can do this. They got a little glimmer into that. And that's what, honestly, I just wanted them to have a good time. The most important lesson I have learned is not to take myself seriously, that I just have to just sit myself down in the studio and get to work. It doesn't matter if I want to do it or not, because as soon as I start working, the flow starts, and I have to do all, but I have to say, I have to do all sorts of things to get myself there. And I wish I'd known that back when I was in college. I think I would have been a better student. That I have to, like when I start out, like if it's been a little time since I've been in the studio, I reward myself with like a chapter in a book or a cup of coffee. I'm like, okay, all you have to do is go in for half an hour. That's it. And before that, if I'm like really resistant, it's like, okay, just clean the studio. Just get it like set, and then you can go for a walk or a run. Then, and I build up, and it's like every time, it's like fitness. It's like eating a meal. These are things I have to set it up. And I can feel stuck, and like I'm pounding my head against some wall, and I'm like, gosh, this is so hard. But if I just read a book, if I call a friend, and get myself out of my own way, things will happen. thank goodness. I mean, I feel so lucky to have been able to do this thing. Like, since graduate school, I have made my money working in my field. What a gift. That is unbelievable to me. I can't believe it. Like, I had years of working in restaurants before then, and thank goodness I know how to work hard. And I've worked really hard to get here. So I don't want to, it's not like, oh my God, I have so many crappy pots, which I showed some of my students. I try to always show that, but this is a great life. So I've learned that.